Hi, I'm Rosina, and this evening I've come on to spread a message to all concerned and to talk about a wonderful, amazing experience that I've had this weekend just gone. First of all, by those who have watched some of my videos, you will be able to see that I have spoken a lot about faith. And my faith has come from, or has gotten stronger and stronger since I have started to face some of the major issues in my life. And through this whole course of a year and just over, I have been working with the help of others completely on myself and dealing with core issues. And I really feel that this weekend for me that has just gone was an ending of absolutely everything. That's what I feel. It's not to say that there still may be some little bits, but I really feel that the roots have been dug up. And I feel that this message here, this talk, is the absolute final drawing a line under everything, and me being able to spread my word out to encourage others who may be in my situation, have been in my situation, and for others who may put others in that situation. It's to spread hopefully inspiration and confidence, and for others to see that there is light at the end of the tunnel. But in order to get there, it has been for myself. It's been an absolute incredible journey. It's been one of the hardest journeys in my whole entire lifetime to get to the core of every single problem, and to sit here now as I am talking to you all, feeling completely refreshed, and as from the weekend, feeling like a completely different person. So I'm now going to go into why I feel like a different person, and talk about my experience over the weekend, which has been absolutely amazing. And as I said, you're all aware that I've been dealing with core issues over the whole year. On Saturday, this Saturday just gone, I felt it was almost like the tip of an iceberg. I was furious. All week I'd felt very strange, very peculiar. For a couple of weeks I felt something was going to happen, and I didn't quite know what it was that was going to happen. I didn't know if it was good or if it was bad. I just felt very, very peculiar, and I could feel something coming towards me like a big ship. And I knew that as soon as it got here, it would be something that it would either go one way or the other. And for me, rather than it sinking, I feel like I'm now sailing, which is absolutely amazing. So I felt very, very peculiar. I felt very, very strange. And on Saturday, I became all of a sudden quite angry, and I felt angry with the whole world. I felt angry with society. There was a rage inside of me that was simmering and bubbling and boiling, and it was almost like, in my head, I have to be completely honest, I really felt like I could have just murdered somebody. And I didn't like that feeling. I absolutely hated that feeling. And there was somebody who had put something up on social media that had made me really question things. And it's not about the change of society. It's not society that maybe was the problem, but it was about looking inside of myself and finding the problem inside of myself. When I've been dealing with the core issues, it's not easy. It's so easy for someone to say deal with your core issues, but it's the most hardest thing to do, because you have to come and strip everything, and you have to come to some harsh realities about yourself, and what's inside of you. And it is so easy to run away and blame the rest of the world for why you are the way that you are. But actually, yes, although they do have an impact, it's something you have to look at and question as to what it is that's made you like this, stripping it all the way back. Anyway, I just felt so angry and so cross with the world, and I lay reflecting most of the day. Or I sat reflecting about this and what it was about the world, and why am I trying to put the world to rights when actually it's myself I need to put right. If there's hatred, or if there's, you know, kind of, why am I questioning what's on society when I should be questioning things about myself? So obviously I was seeing things in society that was a reflection of myself, and that's quite a big thing to hit, you know, and to address. Anyway, I felt really, really distracted, and just like my mind couldn't settle, and I thought, okay, I'm going to pull out my tarot cards, and I'm going to ask my cards what issues it is that I need to be facing, because I could feel there was a big issue. I was just struggling to kind of know what that issue was. And I shuffled up my cards. And I pulled out the Devil card. And I pulled out the Judgment Day card. And I pulled out the Death card. For a lot of you who don't know the tarot, I wouldn't worry about that, because really it wasn't anything that was dramatic. It was just clearly saying that the issues I needed to face were breaking free of bondage, and breaking free of the devil, and breaking the chains that keep me pinned down, deal with abusive past and history, okay, because what it is that I'm still chained to it. And then the Judgment Day was just basically saying I've got my calling and all the answers will become apparent to me. And Death, I really understood that is that there was going to be a massive ending and yet a major new beginning. Anyway, I did further lay out some other cards, because I kind of wondered, like, how do I address these? And the one other card that came out was the Herald, and this suggested to me, go to church. What you need to do is go to church. Now, obviously, I go to church anyway, but with the way that I was feeling, I was kind of feeling like, no, I really just want to skip church. I'm going to just get to bed and, I guess, be in self-pity mode and roll around in my own mess and thoughts. That's what I was thinking on a Saturday night. However, I went to bed on Saturday night, and I had a dream, and this dream brought a relevant message which was interpreted on the Sunday when I'd woke up and put it on my media asking, what did it mean? And this dream was about I was dreaming that I was carrying a big heavy shell with black feathers on my back. It's one of those sort of like what Aphrodite is pictured with, one of those sort of shells, but it was really heavy and it was sitting on my back, and I was walking through like this with this shell on my back, and some bloke had come through with a poison arrow and shot it into my shell. And as I was walking in my dream, I felt the shell was getting heavier, and it's weighing me down and weighing me down, and then I came across a hill, so I put this shell down, I took it off my back and I put it down on the hill. And I just sat there just for a moment, just weighing off my shoulders. And a little boy had come running up to me in my dream and was like, do you want to race? And he was all bubbly and fun, and, you know, and I was just, and I said to him, just wait a moment, I've just got to, you know, make sure that my shell is okay first. And when I looked over at my shell, I saw the tiniest skull. It was skull and bone, like skull in this. It was really small, really tiny, and it was placed in my shell. I don't know who put it there, but there was a skull in there. And the only thing that was in this skull was a big pair of eyes, starey eyes, and it freaked me out a bit in my dream, obviously naturally. And I was a bit like, ugh. And then all of a sudden, my mind was distracted by this little boy. And I said, yes, okay, I'll just leave the shell there and I'll come. And I was running off with this little boy, just laughing, running down this hill. It was absolutely amazing. Further on in the dream, I mean, as dreams go, and you can only remember bits and bobs, but then I remembered this other particular bit, and there was a man on a horse, and he had a funny side to his face. And I thought that he kept giving me evils. So I'd gone up to this man on a horse and I said, you know, what are you doing? Keep looking at me. Funny. Why do you keep looking at me like that? And this man said, I'm not actually looking at you like that. It's just that I had a fit. and this is how my face stayed. So I'm really sorry if that's that you feel I'm doing that, but it's just because I've had a fit. And then before I know it, something really strange happened. Like, it was almost like I'd stepped out of my body and was looking as a spirit at my body, still talking to the man on the horse. But my body was like a tree, and it was like had barks on it, bark bits that could still move. Like, these bark bits were moving, and that's how I was viewing myself. Anyway, that was the dream, and I can't remember anything else. They were the most important bits that I could remember. And so coming out of the dream, I'd placed, a thing on media. Can somebody help me with interpreting this dream? And it did turn out somebody was able to get it precisely right and say to me that it's all about, somebody had said it's coming out of your shell and made a laugh of it, but actually it was a very valid point. And I thought, actually, that's a very valid point, coming out of my shell. And somebody else had commented and said, the fact that it's a man and a poison arrow, and the boy and the child and the skull, it all represents that you've had a very, you've still got something quite painful that needs to be released. You need to be a child again, and you need to try and move on from your past and let go of things. And with that, I did feel I had a conversation on the media and was questioning some things about this dream and some realities that had hit me through the interpretation. Anyway, it was through that I thought, actually, okay, I'm going to go to church today. Maybe I just do need to go to church. I don't feel very positive about myself. I absolutely don't like myself today, and the way that I'm feeling and the way that I'm projecting myself onto the world, and even onto the people that are close to me. I'm going to go to church and hopefully just ask the priest afterwards for some prayer to go through with me, to build me on strength and what have you. Anyway, I went to this service, and on the service there was a homeless man who was absolutely inspirational, so brave, standing up in front of the church talking about the testimony of his story and his path to God, in which a lot of it I could relate to. And he was talking about being homeless and having a life of in a childhood where he wasn't cared for, and he went into foster care, and then he left foster care, and then he had drinking problems and drug problems, and he found himself stealing, and he was projecting onto the world hate, because that's all he'd ever known. He'd only ever known hate rather than love, and he hadn't known an ounce of love. And then he was saying that he was basically on his deathbed, and he had absolutely nothing, and he'd given up all hope, and one day God came to him, something came to him, and he found God, and this was his testimony in the church. And afterwards, the priest then got up, the vicar then got up and started talking, and he said a couple of lines, and he said something along the lines of that God wants to reach out, and he'll reach out by one small finger, and all it takes for God to do is just one small tap, and his finger is there. It's just there if you want to touch it. And God wants to help people break free of bondage and bad cycles, and all God wants to do is to bring people to the light, and to release evil. That's all he wants to do. Release people from evil and bondage and all the chains. And with that moment in the church, with those few lines that were said, and bearing in mind the man who was given his testimony in front of a congregation, which is not like myself at all. I normally just do things in private, but my heart completely and utterly shattered. It just broke, and tears were streaming. They just came from out of absolutely nowhere. And anybody who would know me personally knows I'm quite a hard girl, and I'm not one to express emotions in front of in front of people, I would normally hide away, but this was in front of a congregation, and I put all my hair in front of my face, and I literally sobbed. I could not, for the life of me, stop crying, and my heart was just absolutely breaking. In the service, a lady had come to sit with me who attends church regularly, and I've been going to a new church, so for me this was a new surrounding, new place, and there's one particular lady who I've grown a bit of a bond with, and it's been a couple of weeks, but I really liked her. And she came and sat beside me, and she touched my hand, and she said, "Are you all right? And do you want a hug?" And I threw my arms around this lady. Not that I barely know her, but I threw my arms around this lady and just continually broke down on this lady. I couldn't help it. I guess at the time I just wanted to try and hide. So some of it was a case of hiding my face into her, and others was the fact that this one woman had just, in the congregation, obviously noticed my distress and come over and just said, "Are you all right? Do you want a hug?" And so, I broke down. After the service, the vicar had come over and said, "I could see you're really distressed," and I listened to my story, and I told him why I was distressed, and I explained to him that I've been through a very difficult life. And before I get to the end of what happened with the vicar, I'm going to go through some of the story so a lot of people know. Because the thing is, I've been on net and I've talking about bits and bobs, but it's all been in riddles, and I guess because there's some things that are still coming out, or were still coming out of me at the time. But now I feel really confident to talk my truth and to talk my story. I had explained to the priest that actually as a very young child, me and my brother, I'm talking on behalf of here, we had both suffered significant child abuse, both from one man who had started all of this, started everything. It was one man that started everything. And I was talking to him about the significant abuse that he had inflicted on two of us. And not just that, but this one man had taken my whole life and my brother's as well. He'd murdered our childhood, completely and utterly murdered it. We was locked in rooms. We were isolated from the whole wide world. The only time we could mix was when obviously things like school and dentists, the important things, the things that had to be. That's my phone, just bear with me a sec. Sorry about that. We were completely and utterly isolated from a world. We could go to school and that was it. But as soon as we got home from school, so just bear with me a second. As soon as we'd got home from school, we had to go back up to bed again. We weren't allowed to mix with any of our siblings, the other siblings that were there. And for years and years, as a child, my brother and I suffered, like I said, significant abuse, and we were torn away from our mother. Our mother had become involved in the abuse, and there's other abuse issues that went on that nobody knew about, not even my mother knew about. Nobody knew about it. We was made to eat bread and butter for days and days and days on end. We were beaten, my brother and I. There's this man who was overtowering in our lives, and he would do things like try and drown us both. He would hold us both underwater, and sometimes, as two small little children, we didn't know whether the next day we were going to make it. We didn't know one day if he would go too far and actually kill us, or kill one and the other survive. as children, when you have a man like that, or even a woman as well, overpowering you, you have absolutely no control. And we were filled with fear. My brother and I were absolutely filled with fear. When we were locked away in a room, we was reduced to doing things like spitting in a cup, because we didn't have access to water. We weren't allowed to have water. So we were reduced to spitting in a cup and drinking our spit when we got thirsty. And in fact, there was times that we were actually reduced to having to drink the piss out of our pots that were in there, because we were refused water. And sometimes we felt like we were going to fucking die. These are all things this is the kind of abuse that we had suffered as children. I was made to eat my own vomit because I wasn't allowed downstairs, and I was too scared to go downstairs in case we'd get beaten. And I was actually sick on my bed. And I remember that they woke me up in the morning, and I'd totally forgotten about it. I didn't even know I was sick, really. I guess I was like sort of sleeping, if you know what I mean. And they'd woken up, they'd unlocked the door in the morning, see that I was laying in my pile of sick, and made me eat every piece of that back up, both of them, my mother and my father, or my stepfather, sorry. They'd locked me in the room and said that if I didn't eat it, I wouldn't be going to school. I wouldn't be getting out of that room at all until every single piece of it was eaten back up. That is the kind of abuse we were suffering, apart from getting beatings as well. It was absolutely horrendous. And this core issue has led on to other things. This man, he just stripped us. He stripped us of a laugh. He stripped our identities of who we were. Every Christmas and birthday especially, every single birthday, we were locked away in a room. We had no birthday cakes. We didn't have our mother come in and tell us that we love her, that she loves us, or have anybody sing happy birthday to us. We didn't know anything about our birthdays, and I still don't know. When was I born? How much did I weigh? Was there any complications? Who was there? Was it a joyous time? I don't know anything about my birthday. I don't know anything about who I am, because this one man, and woman as well, but she's passed away, and I kind of guess that sometimes you have to forgive her. And I've dealt with my mother, I've dealt with her, but it's this one man, and I'm not the only one I know with a story like this. I know there are hundreds upon thousands, not just women, but males as well, who would have a story like this. And the idea is not to tell my story through sympathy, but to inspire others to come through and maybe address some of their issues and help them to understand why some of their issues may be there. Okay? So this one man had a significant impact on my mother, and drifted me and my mother apart, drifted my siblings apart, took my identity, never spoke about my real dad and what my real dad was about. And although I've met him and I don't like him and he's out of my life, it's still not the point. I was denied that as a child. He would call me and my brother over and tell us we were little bastards, that we're cunts, that we're nobodies, that we don't belong anywhere. My mother used to call us over and she would say, look what you've done. She was being sick in a bowl one time and she'd be like, see, look what you two little bastard rape babies have done to me. You make me sick. This is what you make me feel like. That is vile. 2 children, we had absolutely no idea. We didn't belong to anybody or anything as children. Me and my brother had each other, and that was it. Just me and just my brother fighting against the evils of this world. And it was the one evil man as well. We were constantly trying to run away from, to get away, to escape. My brother was my protector. My brother, unfortunately, as everyone would know, died in Afghanistan. And this is partly why I was so broken, and everybody may be able to understand that bond and that relationship through listening to this story. My brother was the one who protected me. My brother was my hero completely and utterly. we would have to do things like really imagine a different world that wasn't associated to the material world that we lived in. And he would fill my head with magical stories, like telling me that there was a bear that was alive that moved across the floor. And he would say, look, my magic bear, it's walking across the floor. And I would so believe that. And each day I would get my teddy bear, because Beth had exactly the same teddy bear. And he would say to me things like, it does walk, mine's walked. And I'd be like, well, mine's not walking. And I'd get frustrated. And one of the things that my brother said to me is, when I asked him, why is yours magic? Why isn't mine magic? And he said, because you don't believe in it. Yours isn't magic because you do not believe in it. You obviously don't believe in magic enough. And I guess as an adult, I kind of get even though we were both children, I think the importance of those words as an adult kept me going through a childhood, because my brother was able to put magic in my head so that I could escape my abusive realities, and I could take my head somewhere completely different when all forms of abuse were going on. So I could escape it. And this is what my brother done for me. And not only that, he would cuddle me, and he was the one that would say, I love you and nothing's going to hurt you. And we would make up the games. I mean, we had to make up silly games. Things we had, there was a game that we used to play. We was in a corner. Each of us would be in a corner. And there would be this game that we'd play about trying to make each other laugh to get a smack. Okay, see who could get a smack first. And so we had to try and make each other laugh. And he always used to he always won this game. But out of a very negative situation, we tried to find the positive all of the time. And he would do this thing with his face. So he would get his hand and he would put it there. And then he would be like on one side. And then he would do this. And then he'd go like that. And for some reason, it was the faces that he pulled used to put me in hysterics. So I was the one then that got smacked for laughing, but it was our game that we played. He was like 1-0, So out of those violent, aggressive situations, I did have my brother, and my brother was one. But anyway, just sort of getting a bit more back to the point, obviously growing up and then going through school, I was incredibly bullied at school. Nobody understood my story. My mother had cut all my hair off. She had, a jealousy rage, and she'd cut my hair off, and she used to dress us in some shit. I mean, I don't know what it was, where she even got the clothes from, but she done it. And I think that she knew exactly what she was doing. So we were put in absolute shit sometimes, and we were the mock of the school. And we were severely bullied. I remember being bullied all through primary school. And I remember lads saying, I wouldn't touch you with a barge pole, and who would want to go near you? And, that was really hurtful. That was quite damaging as well, because actually when you go to school and you're out of the violent circumstance that you're in and out of a room that you've been tied to, all you want to do is just enjoy that freedom. And yet we were still fighting. We were still fighting just to try and have that piece of peace in our lives. So, and I guess children can be like that. They can be mean, but it's still not nice. It still had an effect on my life, and some of those things that people would say and that they'd laugh about, and they had absolutely no idea what was going on behind my closed doors of my reality, of my home and my brother's. That then also added on some suppressions, and caused some more problems, and even getting into high school and things like that added on. The fact that then, we was also put into care, that was also another problem, because it was my brother was very, very lucky, and he found some foster parents through going to church. He found some absolutely amazing foster parents whom still do keep in contact with me as well. They've been absolutely amazing with me. There's been times when they've really helped me through some of my dark times. Even though sometimes I've got a bit like nobody's really helped me, but they really did help me, and they're the only people who kind of stuck around really since being a child, and not judged my life at all. If anything, they've really tried to help me when I've allowed them to, I guess. But my brother found some wonderful foster parents, and he was very loved. So his time in care was absolutely amazing, and I couldn't have wished anything better for my brother whatsoever. But I was one that was sort of here, there, and everywhere. Didn't settle in until like a year before I left care into a good foster home. You know, but there were still issues that kind of went on there. But you know, I was from here, there, and everywhere, and I just felt nobody loved me, nobody gave a shit, nobody cared. You know, I suffered violence in foster care even as well, and it was actually quite traumatic in foster care too, because I was trying to find somebody that I could trust in the world, and there was not a person I could trust. Not a single person that I felt in the world that I could trust. And the only person I felt I could trust was separated from me, and that was my brother. So you can imagine that also adds on suppressions, you know. It's been a very difficult journey as a childhood, you know, and I guess like when I left care as well, things went still from bad to worse. You know, I was still being abused, and not this time by one man, but there was many men who I found were very abusive towards me that I've kept my mouth shut with, and it's. And I'm not putting this out there and saying it's all just men, because you know obviously women had an effect on my life too, and they did. Women did have an effect, you know. But I think that because it's one man who said that one thing, you know, it's kind of like that's just how it was. I kind of got so used to it that it was like laying down in front of people and just letting them, because there was nothing there. You know, I was stripped of everything. I was stripped of power, control. I was stripped of everything. So there was more people that became abusive. When I left and went into my own accommodation, which was unfit for human habitation, I would go out at the age of 16 and get absolutely blinding drunk. I didn't give a shit. I just got fucking drunk. And at this time in my life, there was people I know that I was damaging as well. I was damaging others around me. I was pushing people out. I didn't want anybody to come close. And there's things that I feared in my sober life. I feared the whole world. I feared everybody, and I feared everything. And I didn't feel good about myself. I didn't like myself. In fact, there was times I just didn't want to be here. So the only way I felt that I could survive was through drinking. I couldn't go to school. I didn't have enough money. I was living off £40 from social services to buy all of gas, electricity, food, pay for my travel to get to college or school, whatever I was doing, and I just couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford to get clothes. I couldn't afford anything. There was nothing. My life was just dead, you know, and I remember coming out of my GCSEs when I was 16, on that very same day, moving out into the big wide world and thinking, wow, my life is completely over. While everybody else, you know, their parents would be encouraging them to go to school, and their parents would be buying them nice clothes, and they'd be moving on into probably some wonderful relationships and starting their own families or getting wonderful jobs. And, you know, I really felt that there I was in this world full of absolute evil. These were my perceptions of the world. I did not see anything positive about the world, and I dreaded going into the big wide world, and I feared the big wide world to the point that I couldn't even live in the big wide world. I had to drink in the big wide world, get stoned in the big wide world, escape from my realities in the big wide world. I ended up in relationships that were very abusive as well, because I had nowhere. I just didn't feel that I was worthy of anything more than what I was giving myself over for, you know, bad relationships. There were some relationships that I got myself into where I could see that other people were damaged, and what I was trying to do is I was going to relationships to try and fix in them what was completely broken in me, because I know, like a lot of people probably will, but I know what it was like to be broken, and I knew what it was like to see a world of darkness, and all I wanted to try and do was to be that one person's light and to try and fix, as I said, fix in them you know, fixing them, all the things that were broken in myself, and I'd gone completely the wrong way about things, and I continued to do this, continued to go in vicious cycles. I did have children as well, so I did have younger children, my two children, and you know, there was problems in that relationship. However, the relationship now is between me and their dad is absolutely awesome. You know, he's like one of my really closest friends now. So he's one of the people who I've kept in my life, even though things were very up and down, and there was a really bad rocky stage between us, but we've resolved those. But you know, I've got myself into all kinds of pickles in my life, as far as relationships go. I eventually just actually, I'm going to talk about, you know, when I got the blow at 21. My brother was 23 when he died in Afghan, and that was the biggest blow to my life. Honestly, I couldn't have got any lower. That was probably one of the lowest points I've ever got to. I wanted to try and commit suicide and everything else, because obviously he was the only man in my life that had influenced me and kept me going through, you know, some of the imaginations through childhood and survival. And so, you know, really when he passed away, there was really, I felt that everything had been taken away from me, everything. I mean, I had no mum, I didn't have any siblings really. You know, I didn't have many friends. I just felt completely and utterly like my whole world, when my brother had died, my whole world was gone. That's what I felt like, because he was the only one who knew half of the, you know, majority of the stuff that was going on as well. So I completely broke, and through that experience as well is kind of where I did find God as well. I did find faith. I did have faith as a child as well. You know, as a child, when you're in such a world of evil, and you're in a world where you can see things that other people can't, that's where you draw your strength, and you know that there's something out there. But I guess that you kind of break off when things get too much, and it's constant on top and top and top and top of shit, and you don't see any light at the end of it. I guess sometimes some of your faith can be broken away a little bit. But anyway, just continuing. Yeah, so I had that really bad patch. I then decided, you know, come away, went into healing in about 2010. Came into healing, and I think it was in about 2011 or 12, got into another relationship. Again, it was shit. It wasn't as bad as the others, but it was shit. So, you know, broke away from that, and from that point I decided that was it. I am not going to be going with anybody else as a form of a long, you know, like a committed relationship. Obviously, I think in between we'll try, but there was just something that was like, no, it's a no-go, it's a no-go, it's a no-go. And I guess by this point I'd found a small piece of worth, but it doesn't mean that I'd recovered. There was still a lot of work that needed to be doing. I suffered after post-traumatic stress disorder. I was suffering for years on and off with major depression. There would be, you know, I could go for a period of like 3 days with being sociable, and then for 6 months I would just be on I need to shut the world out, I need to lay in bed, and I just need to, like, I guess it was wallowing, I don't know what it was just a depression form. I got anxieties, I didn't want to speak to the world, I closed myself off if people came too close. You know, there was a lot of damage that had kind of been done beforehand, to the point that even some of my children had been for a very short while taken out of my care, you know, because of lack of trust and abusive relationships and decisions I've made. Yes, there was, and I'd got all of that back, and I just felt that, you know, there was still lots of issues, still lots going on. There were times for quite a lot of years that, you know, I really felt that I wasn't good enough, and there were times that I did think about giving up my children, and it's not because I was being evil. It was because I really didn't feel that I could give them what they needed and what they wanted. I just felt there was such a huge piece of me missing. You know, when you have children, and I used to see other people with children, and they'd be laughing and talking to their children and giving them cuddles, and that was a part of me. I just didn't know how to do it, and it used to frustrate me because I found that my children were growing up without that emotional understanding and emotional, let's talk about this, you know, because all I'd ever seen as a child was evil, and so to readjust and try to give the things to the children that I should have been giving, I just felt that I couldn't give it to them. And so there were some points that I did feel like actually my children would be better off without me. You know, I've gone through alcohol problems, and I've gone through sniffing cocaine because, you know, cocaine used to open up my mind from reality of what was actually going on. I didn't find it was a bad drug, if I'm being honest with you. And actually doing that, I can totally understand and see why others would become very addicted to it, because it just helps you. It was helping me, I thought, at one point, just to be able to see a different world again. It's like escaping the reality and feeling different and feeling fresh, and sometimes even just being able to talk or get your ideas out. And, you know, it's almost like you kind of want to release something, and a drug does that to your mind. That drug done it to my mind. It released my mind, but it didn't release anything inside of me. So obviously we've got down to, you know, I've given you a brief detail of all of the things in the build-up, but then when it came to now dealing with the actual core problems and issues, and after I'd gone to hypnotherapy, I mean, my hypnotherapy is one of the best things that I've ever done, and meeting Robert was also one of the most biggest blessings of my whole entire life. And I will always have a love for that man, absolutely love that man, because he has helped me come so far, and helped me to address these issues, and he's helped me to find my faith, and he's helped me to not be frightened, and he's helped me to come out of my shell. And there is no other man on this planet that I ever trusted. He was the first man, obviously apart from my brother, that I absolutely trusted with every piece of my heart, and I still do. So he's the one who has been a massive influence and is still helping me to deal with some of these core issues and these problems. Okay. The core issue, when I really got to the very, very, very root of the problem, I realised that it was just this one man who thought it was okay to abuse me in all shapes, forms and sizes. This one man who thought it was okay to have dominance over me, to manipulate me, to scare me, to shove every piece of fear that he could into me, to the point that I couldn't live my life without fear in literally anything. You know, to even think about my children going away to a sleepover with their friend. You know how scary that is, to think that somebody could be doing to them what was done to me. I have isolated and taken my children from their life of freedom because this man took mine. You know, I feared leaving the fucking country because I felt that I was going to get attacked. I feared taking my children on a holiday in case some man took them, and, you know, like the Madeleine McCann, to bring that up, I'm sorry, but it's very similar like that. You know, I feared that my children would be taken and abused. So we didn't go on holidays. You know, I feared going into a place and asking for a job because it didn't feel good enough. I feared asking for help most of my life because I didn't think that I was worthy of anybody's help. I didn't think that anybody would ever understand, and I thought that people just wanted to be evil. I thought that I would ask for help because this is all I've ever seen. When I asked for help as a child, I never got it, and if I did get it, it was thrown back in my face, and something 10 times worse came my way because I'd asked for a bit of help. So I feared in my adulthood from asking for help. I feared as a child using my voice and coming forward and speaking my truth. I feared that because I thought that somebody was going to kill me. I feared being honest and telling people what had actually happened to us because I was always told as a child you'd be taken away. You wouldn't be believed. You know, and made to feel guilty. You know, I was made to feel guilty because if I said anything to anybody, Christ, you know, that's it. You'd upset me. Look at your brother. You might get taken away from your brother. I mean, how fucking traumatizing is that to think in a child's mind from both parents who were saying, don't tell anyone this, don't tell anyone that. This is the consequences of your actions if you speak. Well, actually, no. That's all now stopped. I'm now in control of my life. And really, I've gone to church this weekend. And these are all of the issues that I've been facing, and this is my truth now, and I'm talking to the whole world because I know somebody out there can listen to some of this story, take something from it, and I don't want people who have been in my situation, male and female, under any circumstances, to feel that they shouldn't be able to speak up, and I don't want people to feel like that they should be scared. I would like this message to give, you know, I would like my story to give people power for themselves, to be able to tell their story and take back their own control. I went to church yesterday and I told my priest exactly what had gone on as a child. And I told him that sometimes I felt the devil was with me. The amount of nightmares that I have suffered in my life, the amount of losses that I've suffered in my life, I have been put and shoved into the dark of a world full of evil. That's me. I have been, from being a small child, and my brother was as well, we were put into the dark. And I asked my vicar, why should I, or my brother, or anybody who has ever gone through any such circumstances, why should any of us who have been abused in any way, shape or form be pushed in the dark for evil to live and dance in the light? The evil that was in front of me as a child and the evil that has controlled my whole life took and had everything that should have been mine. My mother, my relationship with my siblings, even my education, you know, myself, my dignity, my pride, my control, my power, everything. This man had Christmases and birthdays and celebrations with the whole world around him, and he still does to some extent. And I don't blame those people that do give him that, because I can understand why they may be angry and they may not want to believe my story, and that's absolutely fine. They can make their own choices, but I'm talking my story and I'm talking my truth of how I feel here about this man who had this effect on my life. He had everybody on all of these celebrations telling him that they loved him. All the people that should be telling me, that I felt I should have had, telling me that they loved me. All the people that should have been backing me. All them people that should have been behind my back supporting me and telling me, you're my sister, I love you, or you're my niece and I love you. And yet all of these people have been behind this man all my life because they had absolutely no idea what was going on. Absolutely no idea. And even growing up as an adult, you know, my children have grown up without a grandma. My children have grown up without uncles and aunties. My children have also gone without because one man took everything away. One fucking man. One man who does not deserve this. So my message out there, and I know and I hope that this message does get to him somehow, I am there to say that my priest prayed with me, and I am there to tell you that God is right behind me, and God has been behind me 100% of the way. Now, you as the devil, you may have had control over my life, and you may have taken everything that should have been mine, including when my brother went to Afghanistan and my brother went to war because he wanted his mother to love him, because it's a mother that you took away from him, to the evil one who may be listening there. I want you to know we're taking that back. Me and my brother, we are taking that back. And God is standing with us. God is behind us. So you may have had your dance, and we may have danced with you for a little while, but I'm now telling you, we're stopping. We're stopping right here. This is where dancing with you stops. And everything that my abuser has given to me, or any of my abusers have given to me, I have now forgiven you all. And what I am going to do is I've placed everything into God's hands, and I'm going to give you all back everything that you have given to me. So you can take all of these suppressions, and you can all take the nightmares that I've suffered with, and you can take my isolation, and you can take my insecurities, and you can take back the anger that you put inside of me. You can have everything back, all of you. Absolutely every single one of you can take it all back, because I've got God on my side, and with God that is all I need. And God has an army, and I'm here, I'm standing at the front. God is with me, and God's army is right behind. And you devils are nothing when I've got God and my army and God's army with me. You are nothing. You cannot tear me down. None of you evil people can ever tear me down anymore. None of you can do that. Not one person. I am Rosina, and I am not a victim to you anymore. I am not tied down to any of you anymore. I am free, and I am a survivor. And I'm also going to be, and hope to be, with making this video, for anybody that is listening, I hope to be the light of the world, and I hope to be God's voice as well, because that is very powerful. And I think the only person and the only thing that can ever save any of you when this stuff has all come back to you, all the evil people that I'm now throwing everything back to, the only way that you're ever going to break free of what you've given me and you've now got back is if you pray to God for forgiveness. God is the only person that will save you. For anybody that is listening to this video and they may get distraught because they know me and they weren't aware of my story, whether it be any of my siblings out there or any of my family, I apologise that this may hurt your feelings, and I apologise that you may not have known me like you thought you did. And I am actually also very sorry if it tears down your illusions and it tears down your world, and I am sorry about that. But I am not going to apologise for speaking my truth. I am not going to apologise for other people's actions. But what I am, what I am doing here, this isn't, like I said, this is something I was told to do through God. He wanted me to get my message out. He wanted me to tell my story because he wants me to be one of his lights of the world. Now, going right back to the end, because I think this is a really successful ending, and I want to finish on a positive note for those of you that have been listening. When I was under prayer yesterday, I was feeling quite sick. I really wanted to be sick through the prayer, and I think that was because the deepest root of the problem had been completely uprooted. And when I was through prayer, one of the ladies who was praying with me, which was the vicar's wife, actually said to me, I have just been given a name, Naomi, for you. And she said, I really feel that God would want you to have a whole new identity, because he knows that you have had a life of suffering, and this is the end of you now. This is the death of you. Rosina is the death of you. Rosina is just the shell. And this went back to my dream as well, which was ironic that she said that. The priest, when he said his prayers, he's going to resubmit me to baptism. So I'm going to be resubmitted. And so I'm going to be baptised again. But I'm going to go under the new name of Naomi. So I'm actually going to strip my name of Rosina Davey. I mean, Davey was my brother, and I will never, ever, ever forget my brother or cut my other brother off who I've just got contact with. I love them very much. But Davey, that's my real dad's name, and he was nothing but abusive. I want to cut that name. And Moore was also very abusive, and I'm not part of that. I don't want to be part of that. So I'm cutting that name completely out of my life. I'm going to go under the name of Naomi Da'aba, which means Naomi, daughter of God. And my last name I will put down as Pascal. This is when obviously I got the money to put together to change my whole name. And Pascal is like Passover at Easter. I mean, it's kind of like the Lamb of God. Now, for anyone who isn't religious or anyone who may think I'm absolutely nuts, that's fine. That's your opinion. But the whole idea, even if you're not religious, is just to look at my story and just to know that, take back your control if ever you've been through a situation, to get to some of your core problems, address them, and to become you, turn yourself into something wonderful and beautiful, that you really see the inside of who you are. Come out of your shell and start living your lives, and don't allow anybody or anything to ever walk all over you again and take your life. And be reborn again. I guess that's what I'm doing. My old name now, Rosina, is I'm going to leave that in the past. Rosina was my shell. Rosina was all the burdens that I carried from the sins of other people, and I sinned myself with that name, and I was in destruct mode, and I did hurt other people, and I can only but apologise for hurting all the people that I did hurt on that journey. I have learnt a lot. I am very grateful for all of my friends that have supported me, particularly in this last year or so while I've been trying to find myself. To Kelly, I'm going to give a shout out to Kelly, and to Nancy, and to Laura, and Oliver, Jacob, the Fist God Bowl family. And I'm also going to give a massive, huge, great thank you to Robert Powell, Logos of Ophiel, because I really think that without Robert from Logos, I don't think that man quite understands just how much he has helped. I mean, all my friends have helped me. Everybody's been amazing. The people even at the church have all been completely, absolutely amazing. But, just for one man, after being abused by so many men, for one man to turn up and completely transform my life, it's helped me to see that actually there is nice men out there. There are men that actually do genuinely care, and he has set the perfect example of being a man, and showing how a woman should be looked after and how a woman should see themselves, and a man at that. He helps all sorts of people, men and women. So I really thank God for sending that man my way, and I hope he's doing things with his life at the moment, and I wish him the absolute best, because that's one man who absolutely deserves it. I am one of his success stories. He's put so much effort into helping me, so yeah, I'm going to give him the biggest shout out, because like I said, without him I'd probably be dead. I really didn't want to be, a year ago I was desperate, and I was seeing things, and shadows were chasing me, and my life was in absolute turmoil, and the only thing I could see was dark, and the nasty things that lingered in that. And my God, if anybody's ever in that situation or has been, you would totally understand that it's not just in your head, it becomes a physical thing, to the point you want to run away from it all. I understand how scary it is to run away from the biggest, scariest thing in your life. And this man that I've been talking about was the biggest, scariest thing of my life. I've run away from it all my life. I've hidden, and I've tried to protect my siblings from all of the stuff that I've just spoken about, because really, ideally, who wants to know that their father is something like that when it's all been covered up from them? But I'm speaking my truth. This, I feel, is my justice. And I really thank God I thank God, and I am going to pray to God and hope God will now lead me on to many different things. And I pray to God that for anyone who's listened to this story, can overcome any obstacles that have come in their path, from being abused to being isolated, even bullied at school, even becoming homeless, to having no trust in the world, even insecure issues. There's a lot of issues that I feel I've kind of covered in this story. There is lots of bits that are missing. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to go into massive, huge, great details. But really, this is a testimony to my story, and this was me sending back, returning to sender or senders all the shit that you've put onto me, and telling you I am now not a victim of you, I am a survivor. And fuck me, I feel great. I feel absolutely amazing. I look amazing. I can see the difference inside of me. I have love in my heart. And I am ready to venture on and hopefully, change other people's lives. So thank you everybody for who has come on and listened to the story. Thank you to the vicars at my church, and to all the people who have been in my life and influenced it. For those people who have come in and gone as friends, awesome people. Just because we've lost contact, it doesn't mean you haven't had an impact. Everybody who's come in my life, whether you've been good or played a bad part, you've all given me something that has been quite amazing to grasp hold onto, and now I can turn it all into wisdom and knowledge to help other people. So thank you so much. And just to definitely give the final word, just to all of my abusers, I forgive you, and may God have mercy upon you all. Anyway, thank you very much, and goodbye. I can't even turn this thing off. I'll be turning it off in a second. Thank you. I'm still not doing it. I can't do it. So all these things keep popping up. Oh, is it still going? I'm really sorry about this. This won't click off.